We shouldn't have ever got into Iraq. And then, an even easier decision, we should have never gotten out the way we got out.
That's President Trump blasting Obama for pulling out of Iraq. He also said when the U.S. got out that it allowed ISIS to move in and thrive. Now, Trump also went after Obama for failing to attack Syria after it violated the red line by using chemical weapons. Trump had also urged Obama not to bomb Syria, even though a few years later, that's exactly what the president did. I'm just pointing out the clear inconsistencies here. Now, the commander-in-chief, he is declaring mission accomplished against ISIS, and he wants to pull out all U.S. troops despite opposition from his own Pentagon and some of the most notable Republicans on Capitol Hill. Florida Senator Marco Rubio says it is a grave mistake. Here's South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham.
This came out of left field to me. Congress hasn't been informed of this decision. We're going to be seen as having abandoned an ally. Good luck getting somebody to help you fight this war in the future. Iran's going to be really happy, and the ISIS folks who got a shot in the arm.
And of the allies, talking about the Kurds that have gone to fight with us there that we'll leave behind. Then there is the border wall and the looming shutdown. The Senate poised to vote on a bill to keep the government open until February, but it does not include the $5 billion Trump demanded for the wall. Then the resolution, it would head to the House, the White House caving on the wall as both Democrats and Republicans livid that it could cause the shutdown, but Trump continues to say that wall will be built. ABC News political director Rick Klein joins us now. Rick, let's first start off with Syria. It seemed to catch a lot of people off guard, the president's position, including at DOD and Republicans on Capitol Hill. What was the genesis of this, and was this intentionally not shared with anyone?
Well, this has been in the president's head for some time. He mentioned it kind of casually at a rally early this year, and his aides had to explain, well, maybe he didn't mean that. Actually, he does, and he has always thought that there should not be a long-term troop presence in Syria. I think there's some speculation as to whether this has something to do with the fact that John Kelly is no longer at his side. Having that general leaving the job as chief of staff might free him up to do more. But it is a genuine surprise to members of Congress who study and closely follow such issues, and even to members of the military and the president's own administration who are now trying to catch up to what the president is saying he's planning to do.
Obviously, our absence would create a void. And, you know, military experts who know a heck of a lot more than me say the biggest winners out of this would be Russia, Iran, and Turkey. Where is the pushback? I know it's coming from Republican ranks, too. I would imagine, including at the Department of Defense, saying we can't just leave the Kurds hanging here. The Turks, I mean, we're going to create a bloodbath here, let alone we haven't finished everything with ISIS.
Well, it's interesting. This is one of those issues where libertarianism ends up meaning liberalism. So you have people like Rand Paul on the libertarian end of the Republican Party, as well as some liberal Democrats saying, you know what, this is the right thing to do. We shouldn't have been there in the first place, and this is the wrong policy. Where it is the hawks that are most concerned on this. Rubio and Graham, they're among those that are pushing back, saying this is a terrible idea, leaves Assad in power, and also opens the door for ISIS to potentially strengthen in its numbers. And I thought the commentary from Lindsey Graham to say this could be an Obama-level mistake, an Obama-like mistake, that is calibrated to get to the president directly. There's almost no insult on the planet that's worse to the ears of Donald Trump than to say you're doing something like Obama did.
And then we get to the shutdown or not shutdown. And to me, more than what this won't turn out to be, I guess, can you explain to me, Rick, because you know how the Hill works better than most, what was the political logic to this if you didn't bring in members of your own party to craft a fallback winning strategy? At the end of the day, it seems like the president capitulated, and he reminded everybody that Mexico never did, never will, and won't pay for the wall. I don't get how he thought this was a winning hand to play, let alone not enlisting what you would think would be his allies on Capitol Hill to help sell it.
This is all about the border wall, and the thing to know about it, Richard, is that Republicans actually don't care about it nearly as much as the president does. So he had that sit down last week with Chuck and Nancy. They told him that to go ahead and try to do it, and he said, I can do it with just Republicans, and guess what? He couldn't do it. They called his bluff, and now the only way the government is going to stay open is by sacrificing this funding for the border wall. And the idea that Congress can come back in January with Democrats in charge of the House and suddenly decide to fund it, not going to happen. So this could be RIP for the border wall. Despite what the president says, the White House contending that Mexico's paying for it, it's not going to happen. There's not going to be any allocation from Congress. That chapter is effectively closed. But the president still feels like there's significant political capital on the line for him. It was such a signature promise of his, and he's sometimes claimed that it's already happening, and don't worry about it, it's definitely happening. He could turn it around and say Congress is holding him back, but the fact is he ran on this, and it's not going to happen.
But, Rick, I come back, take whatever my thoughts of the wall are, they're irrelevant to this. My only question is, if his goal at the end was really to extract $5 billion or more money than he had last year, even though he didn't spend it, for this wall, it seemed that he never bothered consulting leadership, Republican leadership, to at least stand behind him on this. I mean, the amount of times I saw Senator Kennedy, Republican from Louisiana, saying, I have no idea what the strategy is. There's no votes for this. He can't get this. And then McConnell basically saying, yes, they don't listen to him. We're not going to shut down. I don't understand how anybody thought that was good strategy to do brinksmanship when you always were going to cave.
But you're assuming that the strategy here was actually getting a policy. And if the calculation was they were never going to get it in the first place and it was about political positioning, then maybe it played out. Look, the president's going to be under pressure from his own base to deliver on this. You see it in the tweets from Ann Coulter and people like that say, look, there is no wall and you've betrayed the promise there. So maybe he had the fight to fight, but he was never going to win this battle. And that's what Chuck and Nancy knew last week. That's the bluff they called, and that's why the president is buying some budget peace with the price of his beloved wall.
Okay, so finally, Rick, no shutdown, but we're going to have the same, standoff in a few weeks' time, or no?
Yeah, I know likelihood we're going to be back here, but I think one issue that's going to be essentially off the table is going to be that border wall. It's going to be a new dynamic come January, February. So if they kick the can down the road till the beginning of February, keep in mind that Speaker Pelosi, there's a chairman of all of the budget committees and the spending committees and appropriations that are Democrats now. They have more leverage, and there will be different issues. But yes, I would think there'll be more brinksmanship before there's less.
A very different Washington in many ways in 2019. Rick, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
All right, when we come back, a startling new report showing the scope of the Russian election meddling using social media. Now, I know you said, well, I know it was bad. It's even worse than you think, and even more startling, it is still going on. The author of one of the reports joins us after the break.